Hi, everyone. This is Mike with episode 34 of Getting Everyone Moving, brought to you by Palms to Pines Parasports. Today we have a special guest, Samantha Bullock. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, Michael. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're going to talk a bit about fashion, adaptive fashion. So, tell us, how did you get involved in this industry and tell us about your business?
So, first of all, thank you for having me here. I started modeling at the age of 8 years old. So, I'm 42 now. So, it's a long time ago. When I was 14 years old, I had a gunshot accident and I became paraplegic. And at that moment, I was a professional model. I couldn't do my job. We're talking about 30 years ago, not like a year ago. And I was out of the game for 12 years actually. When through sport, I became the number one wheelchair tennis player from Brazil, and I started to play. I represent Brazil and everything. At that point, I started to do some pictures for my sponsors and be on the media again and get some space, being known. And I realized that okay, there is a space. I could be a model for my niche. I started modeling again. So it is we're talking about 15 years ago. So I started to do the fashion, inclusive fashion, 15 years ago. And 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I launched my business. That's the SB shop. And just last year, we launched the Imperfection, is where we create products and we partner with brands, make the brands understand that they can also be more inclusive and think on more in a universal way. So this is where I came from.
So when
My
you were 14, you said you suffered a gunshot wound. Um, I mean, thinking back, that must have been really hard for you to be a very active person and then, your life changes. Can you talk about that a bit?
yeah, changed for sure. I have chronic pain, so it wasn't only the wheelchair. The pain is something that follows with me. But at that point, I had a very supportive family and friends. So even that I wasn't able, I was never left alone. I would play volleyball with my colleagues at school. I would, so I mean, I think that the community, the support we have is how I never felt that I couldn't do anything. I always felt that we could find a way to do. And I think what I did with fashion was the same. It's like to find a way to do what I want to do.
So how did you discover, wheelchair tennis and other adaptive sports? What led you to that?
Yeah, I was a tennis player before my accident. I also started to play tennis at very early age, at 9, I think. In my city here in the south of Brazil, is a sport that everyone do. So my mom, my dad, my brother, all my friends, they play tennis here. So I was quite good. And I discovered. I never want to play, for example, basketball. That was everyone's like, oh, you can, was the only sport that we knew that was accessible at that time, but it wasn't my game. I would play handball or different sports, but not the ones I didn't. So because I didn't like any other sport, I would swim. That I'm very good. I live by the beach here, so I used to surf as well. But yeah, so I discovered the wheelchair tennis by mistake. Actually, I was working in the government here in Brazil, in the Senate that is in Brasilia, the big. It's like Senate in US, yeah. I was there and the vice presidents there, and someone asked some money for a wheelchair tennis school, like an NGO to support, and I was like, oh, this it's rubbish. I thought it was something that had to do with like corruption, that someone made up a sport in their minds and asked for money, and I was like, no, this doesn't exist. But the fact was, this school was 5 minutes from where I used to work, and I said, I'm going to check, I'm going to get them, I'm just going there and check out. And when I arrived, was like a lot of the tennis chairs there and people having classes and everything. And when I arrived there, all my friends now was like, oh, did you come here to play and everything? And I was just very puzzled because I couldn't say like I came here to check you out. So I was like, oh yeah, I just want to give a try. And I sat and I started to play, and it was kind of like 12 years. I would play. I didn't know a lot like how to push, how to move the wheelchair,
Yeah.
but I had my backhand, my forehand. After, I need to adapt that for the wheelchair, but was there. So I started to play again.
That's amazing.
But
Wow.
it was completely by mistake.
And it must have brought you so much joy to be able to play tennis again.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I normally say that my life was very consistent because I was a model before, I became a model after. I was a tennis player before, I became a wheelchair tennis player after my accident. So didn't the things didn't change much, and even that they did, for sure they did. But I fight to kept doing what I would love to do. And once I found the opportunity, I just grabbed that and I made the most of that.
So, for many people that have been active and then have an accident, afterwards a pretty depressing time, and some people don't recover from that. But what about you that helped you to really keep on going and push to, as you say, you have a very similar life to before and after the accident. What is it within you? And what support system did you have to help you push forward?
I think my friends, I never felt that like I said to you, I never felt that I couldn't do anything. I was part of society. Um, and I had a very supportive family, and so we would laugh, try to find ways to do the things, and we would celebrate every single victory. Would be to be in the pool for the first time, or to manage to go on my chair to get a glass of water for the first time. It was just like everything that we achieve, we celebrate. Was um, was a journey for sure. Wasn't days that was bad. I was in pain. I had pressure sores and everything downs, but I think it's my family, and mainly the way they deal with things. Just don't think, in life you're going to have the good and the bad. You're not going to have only the good. So we need to learn to go through the things when they are not well and learn from that,
Yeah.
if my sense. um yeah, and I think to have a purpose, this came after, I mean, like, years after. But I knew that I I I used to go to a restaurant. I didn't have the ramp. I used to go mainly in Brazil here, and we're talking like 30 years ago. We didn't have the buses. We didn't have accessible toilets. We didn't have, even nowadays, to push in the streets and to look all that things. I just like, this can't be, this can't be. So it's like, this needs to change. So even just after my accident, I was determined to make a change, to make people aware of that. I was always talking about, look, your build doesn't have a toilet. We need to have a toilet here. And I think this became my purpose at that time, even without knowing that.
So you've become a strong advocate. Um, but can you talk a little bit more about conditions for people, especially with a physical disability in Brazil? I mean, what is it like? Challenges?
Yeah, here in Brazil, it's depends where you are from. In Brazil, it's Brazil, and also depends like how much money you have. There, the conditions they are different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, if you depend of the public transport, it's a nightmare. If you have some money to buy a car, is one thing. So the government helps you to get a car, gives you some discount, but even so, it's not everyone have the money to buy, even with the discount. So change change is not like in US or in UK, where the government supply these things for everyone. Doesn't matter if you are uh, wealth or not, you're going to have the same rights. Here is not that good. So you have the big cities, probably, shopping centers. If you go to São Paulo, Rio, Porto Alegre, the big ones we have here, um, you go to places where you can push, probably, like in Rio now, all the buses are accessible. In São Paulo, the metro is okay, but has few stations that are not. But that is not too different than UK, for example. You know what I mean? Like, it's not every single station that are accessible there. And not even in New York. I went last year to New York. I think it was last year, and now I need some. And even, the metro there, the subway was a nightmare. Some lift that was broken, and you need. I got lost inside of the subway for an hour. So it's even so that in Brazil we have, it's has some difficulties that are quite the same when you talk about big cities.
Do you feel the Paralympics in Rio change the way people kind of view people with a disability at all? I mean, awareness?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And even that the history of the Paralympics, when you see, like, when we start in 48, how many players we had, how many players we have now, and how all the journey that we have been through with the Paralympics, and how, for example, London, the viewers, how many was like billions of people watching the Paralympics, is all the perception. We have some numbers that they say that um, 1 every 3 adults in UK got their perception have changed towards disability because of the Paralympics. So it's touched a lot of people. So I really believe that the Paralympics played a big role in all this that we're facing now. Um, I think this probably kind of accelerated the whole thing that would happen naturally. If you it's like the woman, we didn't have the right to vote. It's like, oh, is still growing, and the awareness is, but I think the Paralympic played, not doubt, that played a big role on this. Nowadays the Paralympic athletes, they are seen as a real athlete. I mean, like, real athlete, as is not like, oh, you are a paraplegic tennis player. No, you are a tennis player. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's uh, I would say like, oh, people see, a lot of people see the Paralympic top players as like heroes, even if you're not, you know, like, and is, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I agree with that, because, you know, it's just like a person train very hard to be the best that they can do with what they can offer. And it's, but yeah,
It's
really
right.
the
I mean, it's the Paralympians are athletes. They're super athletes, actually, right? I mean, they're elite athletes. And it doesn't matter that maybe they use a chair for mobility, or maybe they're missing, you know, an arm or something. That's not the point. And I think creating more of that, yeah, you know, these persons trained the same as an Olympic person because they want to be the best in the world. I mean, that's what it's about, right?
And if you see, for example, I'm going to talk about tennis
Yeah.
because it's my sport.
Yeah.
What the guys do in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
it's you know, I was in Wimbledon now a few years ago, and we had like a big match and everything, and you had the guys playing the wheelchair tennis. I really enjoy much more to see what they can do, and in wheelchair, even on grass, that is little harder to push, much harder to push actually, you know. But what they do is kind of the level of Federer, Nadal, but they do in wheelchair, and it's just like, wow, it just blows me away, the things. I don't know, I was like 5 years ago, I think. Fernandez from Argentina, he got a ball, he dropped his chair, he pushed back, and he just killed the point. uh, it's fantastic, you know. And even I think it's like, oh, if you put Nadal, Federer in a wheelchair, uh, they wouldn't play, you know. I
No.
think it was Djokovic that in Australia tried to sit in a wheelchair of Dylan and tried to play, and he was like, he couldn't. So what I'm saying is these guys, you know, ever top athlete on their modality, they play so hard, and they do, you know, amazing. So
Yeah.
it's,
Well, they're elite athletes no matter what. It doesn't, you know,
yeah.
that's the point. Um, you know, I tried to play wheelchair tennis a few times. I couldn't really do it, but you know, I can do wheelchair basketball. Okay. But it's really difficult. And I think part of it is if you come and you sit in a wheelchair and try, then you can appreciate more, you know, what it takes. So, you know, hopefully we'll get more people into sport chairs trying the different sports. So I want to shift a little bit to fashion. And, you know, given that you're an advocate, you know, for, I suppose, disability rights, I mean, what is it, what are you hoping to do with inclusive fashion? Why is that important?
It's important for as a sport, you know, for so many different perspectives, you know. Is need, first because we need adaptive clothes. We need, you know, when you, for example, for example, yeah, for wheelchair user, when you sit, the trousers, they are different. Even if you sit now, you can see, you know, you have less material in the back, your legs get, the legs get shorter. So we, someone that has a paraplegic doesn't deal the same as with buttons as someone that move their hands.
Right.
Someone is blind probably is going to get a shirt. They don't know the color of that,
Right.
and you know, so it's a lot of little things in the clothes that need to be done. And my idea was to, instead of make my own collection, to put the seed inside of the brands that are already there, and say, come and we can do something together, or let's talk about that, open for a conversation for them to understand more. um, but also in terms of representation, yeah, it's massive. You can see when you open a magazine that disabled people, they are not there. The representation in the fashion industry in the magazines, for example, they are 0.01%. This is a agency in UK called ZBD. They just released these numbers last year. And we are 20% of the population, you know, like it's around 20%. And when you see something less than 1%, I mean, like really less, it's not quite right. So we talk towards representation, marketing, employment, you know, because it's not about only to have a model with disability, but to have a makeup artist, to have someone that's a photographer, to have someone that's a journalist, to have the whole industry to think about that, and how much the industry can collaborate to make fashion as a social tool and make the change, because the fashion is, as a sport, is something that touches 20% of population to 30%, yeah, and is a lot.
Yeah.
But fashion touches 100% of the population. You know, every single person in the world, they are aware of, you know, fashion. You can communicate yourself.
Yeah.
And if say if you're in a bad day, in a good day, how you are, and there has the third bit probably, that's is to empower, because you know, the way you feel, fashion has a direct impact on that. If you are all day in pajamas, and when you put something and you dress well, you do your hair and everything, you are empowered. So I think has this the psychology of fashion in people's lives. So if you're wearing something that's fashionable, that made you feel well, at the same time that focus on comfort, that's something that's not going to hurt you, or doesn't go to look that's inappropriate for you, as you could be, you know, when you are wearing something that's not the right thing for you to be wearing. um, this kind of thing, as a whole, has a massive power.
So is the fashion industry changing then? I mean, are you seeing, you know, more adaptive clothing and or, you know, more models and such with disability?
Yeah, it is. It's very slow, but it is, you know. And nowadays, even the big brands, I think they are starting to think about, and I'm not like, maybe they don't even want to think about, because they don't want to change. Fashion, it's very traditional. As you see, the magazines, they are here forever. They display the same type of woman, you know, that's it's white, taller, skinny, young, you know. Now we are talking about aging. We are talking about color,
Yeah.
things that a few years ago, and it's not many years ago, the fashion industry wasn't thinking about, and nowadays they need to think about. So wouldn't be okay nowadays to have what they call as a white magazine. To open a magazine, you only have white people there. Is not right, you know.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to become the norm, where the representation needs to be showing, needs to be displayed. You can't ignore these kind of things, that we are there. um, so it's improving. More brands, I could say, big ones as Tommy Hilfiger, you know, smaller ones, they are also thinking now about. We have more than 23 brands with us on our platform, and I'm going to tell you, we make from dresses, jackets, trousers, whatever, even like creams that has a cooler effect or helps somehow, or accessories, as we launched last year a earring that was written love, feel, and us in Braille. So I
Wow.
mean, like it was from a company called Big Coffee in Portugal, and the thing is, you could feel the words, yeah, because it was Braille. So all the stones, Shivarovsky stones. So it's not that we need a special earring, but the meaning was there,
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
So, you know, as you talk, it kind of sounds like the movie industry, in that, you know, it had been, when you think about the Oscars, very exclusive, right? Hadn't involved people of color and such, and that seems to be changing. And it sounds like a similar thing for the fashion industry. It's been very exclusive as opposed to being inclusive.
Yeah, they are changing. I think also they are changed for the right thing, for the, you know, is the ethic thing to do. You need to change, you need to
Yeah.
englobe, you need to get everyone involved, but it's also a massive opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
you are not going to say, I don't want 20% of the money. You know, one person with disability, they, you know, like the community is worth more than $3 trillion. And if you think, for example, that if let's say if I go to a restaurant, yeah, it's me, probably it's me and my husband, probably it's me, and if I have a daughter or a niece, or, you know, it's me, my husband, and my daughter, and there maybe my mom, maybe a friend. So when someone is closing the door on towards someone that has a disability, is not only that money that they are rejecting, is the social one that these represent with family and friends, $8 trillion. So is they are doing probably the right thing, because they need to do the right thing, is the ethical way to think, but also makes business sense. You know, Sinead Barks said that another day, and it's like, why would say like, no, no, go away, I don't want your money. No, do you know what I mean? Like, and I think nowadays in the world we live, mainly in the fashion industry, that they don't have more for where to grow. And the fact that it's like a lot of people, they have the fast fashion has so many clothes, so many, where they are going to grow for, you know, what you're going to do with so many clothes that you have every single time is, you know, and just shipping to whatever country. And they need to grow. And so it's something that, as we weren't considered in the first place, and you know,
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, we need to grow. Where do we grow for?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're coming towards the end of our interview. What is a message that you'd like to leave, you know, people with? I mean, you have this great purpose in life. Obviously, you haven't let the fact that, you know, you were shot slow you down at all. You've done everything you can. You know, but there are a lot of people who, again, you know, they take it as the end of their life. That's it. I can't do more. So what do you say to people to really, you know, motivate them?
Find a purpose. Don't think about your life for yourself. You know, find a way to help someone. It's is when we give, is probably where or when we find the joy. You know, so it's think, how can you help? And maybe you go to a, if you know, go to a school, talk with the kids, explain that it's always someone that is going to benefit for what you have to say, if what you have to say is something good. You know, learn your beat, do what you love. You know, for me was fashion, was tennis, is fashion, is tennis. I'm doing that. We are developing, you know, always new clothes, new adaptations, find new brands. talk with the ones that are there and communicate with them, like, oh, how can you make a change? How can you make this, find a way to do the things, because it's like each brand that we get, they are a different. You talk to someone that does trousers, you talk to someone who does jeans, someone that does dresses, it's like, okay, how inside of what you have we can make a change, because everyone is different. Also, it's the fashion industry, so it's when you have this purpose and you try to make the difference, you're going to find joy. If you're doing this, and doesn't matter, and what you like to do. For example, if you are passionate about food, do something with that. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so I would say, as I normally say, do what you can, the best way you can, you know, and do often enough that you're going to be an authority, and you're going to be happy at the end.
Yeah. Samantha, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
No, thank you.